will be doing in Ohio what we do in regard to liquor. It is a control operation. It's a controlled state. And so people cannot today buy it, but they can have it tomorrow morning. In a few hours, at midnight, they'll be able to have it, they'll be able to consume it, but they won't be able to legally buy it. That is a recipe for disaster. And it's very important for the House, for the Senate to get this passed and for us to be able to move on. So happy to answer any questions.
Governor, what is your understanding of where things stand with the House? We know the bill's going to pass the Senate today with bipartisan support. What have you done to get House support?
Yeah, I have had long conversations with the leadership, with those who are working on the bill. They know exactly, I think, what the concerns are. The director had the opportunity, both directors yesterday, as I said, to explain in detail exactly what the problems are connected with the language of the bill and what we're kind of a mess we're going to be in tomorrow morning. You know, some of this is complicated, and but it was important to bring the director in, and she gave them, I think, a very, very good briefing. They had questions. You have to ask them if they had any concerns about that, but I think there's a real understanding after that meeting about why we have to move, and that there has to be a sense of urgency. So I believe the Senate is going to pass this, maybe passing it shortly. I would urge the House to pass this. Look, we listened to concerns expressed by members of the House. This is not a bill that has everything in it that I want. It has some things in it I might not want, but are part of our democratic process with two houses and a governor, and is that we try to work things out. And so while this is a Senate bill, we did listen to what the House said, and you know, tried to come up with something that we believe that they can support.
What's your understanding on the tax rate in the Senate bill? The original version had it at 15%.
Yeah.
Is it
yeah. This is.
Level,
yeah. This is going to generate, I think, Sherry, what do we say, about 280? 280. When it's up for a whole year and moving, it's going to generate about $280 million. And so you'd have to ask them, you have to look at the exact, but I was looking at the kind of the bottom line, what that tax was, and then frankly, you know, what the best way to spend it. And we.
Well, there was some concern that would price people out. I mean, a higher tax rate
sure.
would make it more expensive and push people to the left.
Yeah, we don't think that's true at all. We think it puts us in a reasonable spot, and that's certainly, you know, we all agreed that we had to find a sweet spot. We wanted to be able to tax it, and look, this is it takes some money to even police this and to run this. So, you know, we wanted sufficient money to do that, and frankly, do some other things that we thought were in the public interest. On the other hand, we don't want it to be so high that it does, in fact, shove people, you know, to the black market. And so we think we've hit the sweet spot. There's no, I don't know if there's any exact science to it, but we think that we've hit the right spot.
Governor, do you feel that it's a sweet spot, particularly with the THC extract limits set at 50%, which are substantially lower than neighboring states that do have, I don't want to say that state up north, we've heard that a lot this week. Michigan's is set around 90 or higher, and this is about 40% lower. Is that a sweet spot, or would that potentially drive people out of state?
We don't think so. I don't know, Director, if you have any comment about that.
So not all states regulate THC content. Some just regulate dosage. The fact of the matter is, even if it's a lower THC, you could take more than one dose. So it evens out in the wash, if you will.
And why don't you also talk a little bit while you're up here about something you and I have talked a lot about, and that is the size of the gummies and that concern.
Yes.
To me, it's rather complicated.
Yes, so the initiated statute was silent on dosage. Most states are at a 10 milligram, 100 per package. the initiated statute was 90% THC and no limitation on dosage, which I think raises a whole host of questions and concerns.
Look, just to follow up on that, we want to make sure people know what they're taking. We want them to have some idea of what impact that's going to have on them. And so someone who, takes a big gummy, may have some results that they don't want and we don't want. So we want to make sure people know what they're doing as much as possible.
Governor, in the Senate bill, Homegrown goes down from 12 to 6. Does that ignore the will of the voters?
No, I don't think so. I think this, I'm going to ask the director to come back. Look, I would prefer no homegrown, but once again, you don't get everything you want in the bill, and this is a question of compromise. But what I want the director to do, though, is to tell how much marijuana this actually is. Because I think it's important in the discussion.
All right, so homegrow is supposed to be for personal use. You're not supposed to be able to sell it or even give it away. A mature plant, homegrow, will produce roughly between 75 and 100 joints. I want you to multiply that times the 12 that was available under the statute per household, and then remember that growing periods don't take a whole year, so there's multiple growing cycles. Most more sophisticated growers can get 3 cycles a year, so you do the math.
It's a lot. And so what's in this bill is still much exceeds what a person would be able to consume themselves. And so, again, the idea, I think what people were voting on, they wanted to be able to grow it themselves for their own consumption. They can clearly do that under this bill. In fact, they're going to have a lot more than they can consume themselves.
Are there any of the glaring examples in this bill that you do not agree with?
I think part of, trying to work out a compromise is not to stand up here and talk about the things you don't like. So, but look, I think it's a good bill. I think it's a good bill. Part of this is a compromise. Going back, I didn't vote for the bill. I was not in favor. I did not vote in favor of this ballot initiative. But the people voted for it. And as I said the day after the election, we have an obligation to follow the will of the people, unless that's changed at some point. But we also have an obligation to make this work and to try to protect people who don't want to be exposed to marijuana smoke, but also the people who are consuming marijuana, to make sure that it's pure, that is, in fact, it is safe. And so all of these changes, a whole bunch of the changes, I think, bode well for those objectives. The objectives we have, I think we're meeting with this bill. I think it's a very, very good bill, and it's imperative that this thing get passed. What we don't want is a situation where the black market grows, and we don't want a situation really where people don't know what the rules are. And we just need to get this done and help get it out for the people of the state of Ohio to understand exactly what's in it, and we'll move ahead with the implementation as the people ask us to do.
Governor, are you planning on asking the House to reconvene tonight? They've adjourned until 9 a.m.
No, look, I think, I'm not going to tell the Speaker how to conduct the House. I think the important thing is that this gets passed. And, if it's tomorrow, that's okay. But what we don't want is this to go on day after day. And we don't want a situation where, this just doesn't get passed. This needs to get passed.
So does this need an emergency clause? Because even if it did pass tonight as written, it would still take 90 days for it to go into effect.
That's right. But again, it's a real signal. And when you talk about, the people who are in the black market, they can operate for 90 days. But if you're in the black market, you may not decide to invest a whole lot if you've only got 90 days of action ahead of you. So, again, would I like it to be in effect right now? Yes, I would. That's not where we are. But I think that, it will send the right signals and tell everybody what the rules are. I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No, I
Got it?
don't think that
Okay.
covers it.
Who else?
Question
Allowing
for
the
Andy.
dispensaries to sell this is a big change. Is the industry ready, and why was that the right choice?
So actually, shortly after it passed, I had several members of the industry come to me and say, could I do this as a pilot program? And I reminded him, we're ruled by laws, and I couldn't just do that on my own. I think they will be ready, and obviously, if anybody isn't ready right away to sell rec, we're not going to make them, as long as they continue to keep their doors open for medical purposes. That would be fine, too.
A
Did you
question
look
for
at
Andy.
other states, how their best practices and how they handle this?
So we are in contact with all the states that regulate marijuana, both on the medical side and the rec side. To the governor's point about the delay, I'm going to use New York as an example, and for those of you who follow this issue, it's pretty well known. It took a long time to get the program up and running. In Manhattan alone, they had over 1,000 pop-up, i.e. illegal stores. And so this is a race to try and close the door.
Question for Andy. It's illegal to cross state lines right now with marijuana, and it's still going to be under this law. It's also illegal for you to buy on the black market. How is public safety going to handle, are you going to target people that are crossing